Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again, and we're going to have a look at a collaboration beer today between two breweries that have featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some very good beers from both of these breweries in fact, so it's going to be interesting to see how this collaboration turns out. It's a style of beer that I've been really enjoying again over the last little while, and so fingers crossed this turns out to be a good beer. So for this review then, for the home brewery, we are going to head to Newcastle in the northeast of England, and we're having a look at another beer from Wylam Brewery. So this one is called the Cold Condition. It comes in at 4.6% ABV, and it's a lager beer originally brewed in collaboration with Donzoko Brewing Co, who are from Hartlepool in County Durham, just a little bit to the kind of south of Newcastle. So yeah, this particular version comes in at 4.6%. Apparently there was another version of this beer that was 4.8%, and yeah, I'm not sure exactly why Wylam would have changed the recipe a little bit and kind of re-released it without Donzoko's name, but yeah, that happens with collaborations sometimes. I have seen this happen in the past, where a beer has originally been brewed as a collaboration and then the recipe has been changed very slightly and the beer has been re-released without the collaboration brewery's name on it. So yeah, seems to be one of those cases. But yeah, the original version of this was 4.8%, this version is 4.6%. But yeah, hopefully it turns out to be another interesting beer. I've had some very good things from Wylam in the past. The last beer that I reviewed from these guys was a triple IPA, the Tales of Majestic Puck, and that was just an absolute monster of a beer. That was actually my first dedicated review to Wylam in quite some time, and I didn't realise it until I actually went to film it. But yeah, always nice to feature Wylam on the channel. I've had a good few collaborations involving them in recent times, of course. That was the main reason I didn't realise I hadn't done a dedicated review in quite some time. But yeah, I've been reviewing quite a few things from Donzoko recently because of my lager phase that I'm having on the channel as well. So always nice to feature both of these breweries on the channel, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done both from Wylam Brewery and from Donzoko. You will no doubt see more added to both of those lists at some point in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite a lot at the moment because I am enjoying an extended period of time at home in the motherland of Scotland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Wylam Brewery first off then, since these guys are the home brewery. So Wylam Brewery was founded by John Boyle and Robin Layton in the small village of Wylam to the north of Newcastle back in 2000. Strange to think that they're 20 years old already, but both men had taken early retirement. John had been a computer engineer and he met Rob, who was a former sea captain and avid home brewer. So John fixed Rob's PC one day, which apparently took quite a long time, and apparently Robin and John agreed a payment of 5 gallons of the Vice beer that they'd been drinking for taking care of this. But Robin was really interested in barley wine, stouts and sours, which weren't really popular at the time, and both he and John wanted to see these styles kind of reintroduced into their local pubs. So they produced their first beer, which was the Landlord's Choice, in August of 2000, and the beer became very popular through word of mouth. But Robin only remained in the company until around 2003, but he managed to build a team of Ben Wilkinson, Christopher Lee and Lee Howarth, who are still at the brewery today, and they're a very successful brewing team, you have to say. But John convinced his son to move back from Spain and take over his share of the company, and then they moved premises to Headon-on-Wall in 2006. But the company is now also co-owned by Rob Cameron and Dave Stone, who were both running a nightclub in Newcastle, having had lengthy careers in the music sector. But the two of them had grown tired of this, and they decided that they wanted to move into beer, and so they bought two pubs, the Bridge Tavern and the Town Wall, and these quickly became one of Wylam's biggest customers. But they approached Wylam to see about buying into the brewery, and this kind of offer was taken up. And then in 2016 they moved to the Palace of Arts and Exhibition Park, which was apparently a military vehicle museum for a period of time, and it was scheduled for demolition before being saved by Freddie and Bruce Shepherd. So it's a beautiful building actually. It would have been a terrible shame if it had actually been demolished. But this took them 2 years to renovate and plan and renovate. It's now equipped with a 30 barrel brew house and also a 15 barrel smaller pilot kit for their kind of special beers and things that they do. They've got a brewery tap in there as well, which is very nice. I have been in there, but I need to go back and film an out and about video there. But they also host concerts and things in there as well, which is pretty cool. But the current head brewer, as we mentioned earlier, is Ben Wilkinson. He also had a background in the pub industry, and in recent times the increase in capacity has really allowed him to do a lot with the New England IPAs and stuff like this. And this is what has really kind of increased the standing, if you like, of Wylam Brewery in recent times. But it's really helped them kind of get more in with the kind of craft beer drinkers in England rather than the kind of traditional things. But it also allows them the kind of freedom to do their more traditional beers like Jakehead. I don't know if they've done Landlord's Choice in a while actually. I would love to try that beer, love to see them redo that. And release that, because that would be a very interesting one, I think, to have a go at, the very first Wylam beer. But I've never ever seen that beer, even when I was in Durham for the year. But yeah, basically they've got enough capacity now to brew all these kind of crazy craft things, as well as keeping their kind of older customers, I guess you could say, happy. But today they can produce up to 100 hectolitres of beer per day, which is pretty impressive. And as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced around 200 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Wylam Brewery for the moment. I've had some great beers from these guys over the years. It's difficult to pick a favourite because, you know, it was about 3 years ago, until the Tales of Majestic Puck, that I last had been reviewing their beers regularly. But yeah, definitely a brewery that you want to check out if you're interested in English craft beer. They've got some great stuff in there. So yeah, have a go at these guys if you get the chance. But that's all for now on Wylam Brewery. If you want to learn more, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. And you can search their name in my channel and you will see the different beers that they've produced so far. But yeah, on to the away brewery then. So Donzoko Brewing. So Donzoko Brewing Company, as I've told you before, are based in Hartlepool, which is County Durham, again in the northeast of England. This company is headed by Rhys Hugill, or Hugill, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name, but Rhys Hugill, and he started homebrewing back in 2014. So he studied chemistry at Newcastle University and then later at the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. And it was during his time in Germany that he really developed a taste for the German beers, a love of these kind of German style lager beers. But he was due to study his masters and he decided that he wanted to do something else, and after having had some success with his homebrewing hobby, he decided that he was going to start up his own company, and he did this with the help of savings and grants from both Newcastle University and Hartlepool Council, and he got this up and running properly back in 2017. So originally they were brewing the wort at another brewery and then transporting it in bags to their own premises where they would do the fermentation. And they've just been gradually building up their operations in Hartlepool over the years. They had been planning to expand and get their own brew kit and things in during 2020. I think they have done that actually. I do think they have their own brew kit in Hartlepool now, because there are quite a few beers that are saying on the cans now brewed in Hartlepool. I couldn't find any sort of newspaper articles or anything on social media to kind of confirm that. I will need to have a closer look, but I think they are brewing their beers now in Hartlepool, which is pretty cool, and that means that they can get their beers out there a little bit more. But their main beer, of course, is the Northern Hellas, their flagship beer, and that is brewed under contract at Gypsy Hill Brewery down in London, and of course that helps them get their different batches and things out there as well, which is pretty cool. But as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, according to Untappd, they've produced around 40 different kinds of beers, and these days, instead of just being German beers as they were originally, there's a few kind of pale ales, IPAs, black IPAs, and there's one or two kind of Belgian-y leaning beers in there as well, from what I remember. But yeah, these guys, very nice brewery. I do want to try a Dunkel beer involving them. I know they've got a collaboration Vienna lager with somebody at the moment, so I'll need to see if I can get a hold of that one to review before I leave, but I think it's kind of unlikely, to be honest. But yeah, I would love to see, the very first beer I tried from Donzoko Brewing Company was a Doppelbock, and that was very nicely done. And then before that, I was I hadn't even heard of this brewery. They just turned up in the Hop Knocker in Durham one day, and I got a nice wee surprise with that actually. So yeah, that was it. But I've had some really nice beers from them since I got to try the Northern Hellas thanks to Adam. I had the Fest beer, and then we had the Select Pils Tettnang, which was very good as well. But yeah, really respected brewery these days, specialising in German lager beers, which is great. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Donzoko Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for the brewery history sections of the video. We can get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is once again very nicely presented. It's a little bit like a camera, you know, a corrupted camera image or something like that. 8-bit or 16-bit. How many bits would it be for colour again? Is it 16-bit? I think so. But yeah, really nicely presented, this one. I think the artwork is very cool. You can see there is the Wylam Brewery symbol. And you can also see on the back here, yeah, this one doesn't make any mention of Donzoko for some reason. And again, as I said earlier, I think the original version of this beer was 4.8%, this one is 4.6%, and it tells you that the hops in this beer are Huell Melon and Hallertau Blanc, which is pretty cool. So yeah, the original one had a little bit of acidulated malt in it too, which was quite interesting. But yeah, this one I think should be really nice. 440ml can, this one. And this, I can't remember how much this cost me, I think maybe about £3.50 or something like that. So yeah, somewhere in the region of €4, 40 Swedish kroner, maybe about $4.50 American, if we're translating all the prices. But yeah, let's have a closer look at this one and see how we're going. We'll get it out and into the glass. This was another beer, of course, that I bought at the House of Trembling Madness, who are from York. Great beer shop if you can get down there physically, but otherwise they have a great web shop that's one of the best value ones in England, according to the English Beer Tubers, and it's just got a huge selection on it. So I would recommend that you check that one out if you get the chance and you are interested in English beers. I'm not sure if they're sending their beers abroad at the moment, but yeah, that is definitely something that you could look at if you were interested. But yeah, there we go. The can, it got a little bit of a dent on the bottom for some reason. I'm not sure why, but yeah, there we go. There we go. So yeah, that's why it's sitting. You can see it's sitting a little bit squint there, which is quite funny. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, it's kind of poured exactly as you would expect from a sort of Helles lager beer. You can see there's about a half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one. I wouldn't describe that as creamy. But yeah, there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There's a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but it's just got a nice little bit of that kind of natural haze sort of thing to it. It does say on the back that it's got wheat in it, so I wonder if the wheat is responsible a little bit for the haze in this one. But you know, lagers naturally are a little bit hazy. You can see if I put my fingers behind the glass that, you know, there is a degree of transparency to this one, but it is slightly opaque as well. But in terms of a Helles lager beer, it certainly looks very nice, I have to say. So yeah, this looks pretty damn cool actually. It does look kind of as you would expect from a Helles lager beer. So nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. Let's see how it comes out in the aroma then. Let's go for it. Right, okay. So I would say straight away, this one comes across as really, it's very authentic. It kind of comes across a little bit like a kind of Munich Helles beer. So remember, the definition of a lager is basically a bottom fermenting yeast, cold temperature fermentation, hence the name cold condition. So normally a lager beer will ferment somewhere in the region of, it can ferment, you know, usually, I think lager beers, the old Keller ones in Germany, they used to ferment between like, you know, 8 and 10 degrees. But it said on the original Untappd page for this one, for the original version, that it was conditioned for 12 weeks, I think it was, at 0 degrees Celsius. So that is a pretty damn cold condition. So I'm guessing that this one might well have undergone the same kind of treatment. But basically, a lager beers undergo fermentation at colder fermentations than ales will. Ales will ferment with top fermenting yeasts around, you know, 15, 16, 17, 18 kind of degrees, somewhere in that sort of region. So that's your main difference between ales and lagers, of course. But this one really comes across as quite similar to like a kind of German, quite a crisp German Helles lager. And of course there's lots of different lager beers in there. In Germany you've got the Helles, in Czech the Svetli, you've got the Vienna lager, that's probably the equivalent to the German Märzen, or the Czech Letzak. Then you've got Dunkel, which is the more mahogany coloured one. You've got the Czech Cherny, then the Schwarzbier in Germany, the Tmavi in the Czech Republic. You've got the Doppelbock, and you've got Maibox and things like this as well. There's quite a few different kinds of lager beers out there, all of which are actually very nice. But this one for me really comes across as very crisp, and that's what makes me say it's German. The Czech ones tend to be a little bit more kind of bready and slightly yeasty, I think, whereas the German ones are a little bit kind of drier and crisper. if that makes sense. So yeah, this one really strikes me as a sort of Helles, a German Helles beer. Even within that Helles category, you've got two different types. You've got the Dortmunder Helles, which is the slightly more kind of hoppy version, but then you've got the Munich Helles, which I've always found is a little bit more kind of bready. And I would say that this one does lean a little bit more towards the Munich side of things, because it's got a lovely malt base to it. So I mean, straight away with this one, you can smell a lovely kind of soft bready character to this one. It does smell like it might be Munich malts that are in this, to be honest with you. But yeah, it has a little bit of crispness to it as well. You can smell maybe just a tiny little touch of Pilsner malt or something. It does have a wee bit of that in there maybe. It could also be UK lager malt, to be honest with you, because I've had, which brewery was it I had that from? I had a lager beer from, it might have been one of the Scottish breweries, come to think of it. I think it could well have been the one that I had from Wylan Brewing, or one of my local breweries here in Scotland. They're from the next county over. But yeah, this one, it's lovely. I think it might be a kind of UK lager malt in there. There's a soft, just kind of white bready sort of quality to it. A little bit of there's just a soft little bit of that bread, but then you've also got just a wee bit of kind of crispness in there too. There's not too much to report in the malty side of this beer, to be honest with you. You get a little bit of a biscuity, kind of McVitie's Digestive sort of thing, and mainly it's just kind of soft, very light, airy white bread, to be honest with you. Not a lot going on. Maybe some bread crusty notes, a little bit more graininess the more that you smell of it. But yeah, the malty base comes across pretty authentically. It's like a very, very light smelling Munich lager beer, this one, a very light Munich Helles beer, in my mind. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, it's got these typical noble type elements to it. You know, even these slightly higher alpha acid German hops like Hull Melon and Hallertau Blanc, you know, they are still going to give you the kind of typical traits that you would get from you know, the Hallertaus and the Tettnangers. These hops, you know, the classic German hops, they've got a little bit of a soft earthiness to them, a quite bright floral aromaticity, and then a very soft grassiness as well. And you get that in these higher alpha acid German hops, such as the Huell Melon, the Hallertau Blanc, and the Mandarina Bavaria. So yeah, you get that straight away with this one. Little soft bit of earthiness, there's a wee tiny bit of a herbal quality in there, some nice bright floral aromaticity, good little bit of grassiness as well, in fairness, I think. And then you've got a few other things going on in this beer as well. So yeah, it's really nice how everything kind of goes together with this one. I like how this beer does its thing. So yeah, interesting stuff, I have to say. I really like what this beer has going on for it. So thumbs up to them on the green component. It's just got a lovely soft kind of thing there, and again, that helps add to the authenticity of the beer. From the fruity side of things, the Huell Melon, of course, it's named, it gives you a little bit of melon, so you can get a little bit of a kind of oily melony quality out of this one. The Hallertau Blanc gives you a lot of gooseberry, and you can get these two elements straight away in this one. So when you take this beer in, it's very gooseberry-like, a little bit of melon in there. There are a few kind of perry esters in there as well, and a little bit of a kind of lemony, grassy kind of thing. But yeah, maybe a little touch of apple or something as well, and maybe some apricot. So yeah, it's really interesting. The fruitiness comes across as quite oily, but then you've got other soft elements just coming out of it as well. But it's a lovely, lovely smelling beer, this one, I have to say. It just comes across as very, how do you say, it comes across as very authentic, like a Munich Helles beer actually, with just a little tiny touch of Pilsner crispness in there. So the fruity elements are nice, like I said. Take a little bit of time to just enjoy that before you get stuck into it. I think this one is going to be quite an interesting beer. So yeah, this one is the Cold Condition, a lager beer coming in at 4.6% ABV from Wylam Brewery in Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England, in collaboration originally with Donzoko Brewing Company, who are from Hartlepool, just a little bit to the south in County Durham. So yeah, let's go for it then, guys. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and hopefully this is a good one. Yes, that is very nice. It is very, very nice, that. Yeah, very, very easy to drink. Yeah, thumbs up to both breweries involved in this one. It's a very, very wet, it's a really quite wet lager beer, this one. And the acidulated malt, I'm pretty certain just going from this, that there is acidulated malt in this. The old one had acidulated malt in it as well, but you can kind of tell from the mouthfeel with this one a little bit. It has that, because you get this little, it's a very, 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 very slightly citricy thing, and it's quite oily. You just get a little bit of zip almost on the middle of your palate, if that makes sense, with acidulated malt. One of the breweries who always used to love to do that was Magic Rock. They always used to love to have a little bit of acidulated malt in their IPAs, and you could always get that right in the middle of the palate with them, and you could, pardon me, pick up just a little bit of that from this beer as well. I will say straight away, this is a lovely, lovely lager beer, so I can see why Wylam would want to continue with this one. I can see why they would want to continue with this particular beer, because it's very, very solid. It is really, really nicely done. What I would say about this one is it's very authentic and it is well done, and I like it, but I think the acidulated malt, perhaps, I'm not convinced that's something that the Germans would use that often, to be honest with you. So it does have a little bit more of a kind of a sort of craft. It almost feels like it's a little bit more of a kind of craft take on the German classic, if that makes sense, rather than being as authentic as it might be. But it's a lovely, lovely beer, and that takes nothing away from it. I mean, I think this stands up. It stands up there with the the other beers you're going to get from Donzoko in my mind. But the Donzoko ones are very, very authentically German. This one just has a little bit of that kind of American style craft beer sort of vibe to it because of the acidulated malt. But I think it's a really interesting addition. Actually, I think it's a really interesting addition. If some of you watching are like homebrewing, big homebrewing nerds and things like that, let me know, is it common for the German breweries to use a little bit of acidulated malt in their Pilsner bases and Helles bases and stuff like this? Because it doesn't come across as being out of place at all. It certainly works really well in the style, and it's a variable that I'd never really considered, actually. And this is what I like. I love, when you get little things like this in beers, 2,600 beers in, and I'm learning that acidulated malt works well in lager beers like this. This is what it's all about for me. I love learning new things about beer as well, so I'll need to remember that acidulated malt works in these lager beers. So Wylam and Donzoko seem to have taught me that. And in fairness, the original one did definitely have the acidulated malt in it, so maybe there is. It would seem logical that if Donzoko have been involved and they're using a bit of the acidulated malt in it, maybe that is something that Reese has picked up from learning how to brew these German beers. So yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah, I certainly like how this goes together, absolutely. So yeah, in terms of the where do we start with this beer then? So I mean, straight away with this beer you can feel that lovely kind of soft white bready quality that just blankets the middle of your tongue. You get that right in the middle of your palate. But as you go further towards the kind of back of your palate there, on that back third of your tongue, you can feel you do get a little bit of a more kind of grainy quality to the beer. You get a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty thing on that back third of your palate. In the border region between the middle and back thirds of your tongue, there is a little bit more of that slightly kind of almost Pilsner malt like thing that I was talking about, just that little bit of dryness in there, which is quite interesting. But even that comes across as a little bit oily. But as you move further forward into that middle third of your palate again, it's interesting because you've got that soft layer in there, but you've also got you also have a little bit of a how do I say? You've also got a little bit of say, kind of you've also got just a little touch of a kind of brain's not working. You get a little bit of that kind of oily thing that I was talking about from the acidulated malt. So it gives you a teeny little bit of a slightly citricy zip almost, but then you've just got a wee oily character from it, which is great. So I really like how that goes together. But yeah, the more and more that you drink of this beer, you will start to develop, there is a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive oily sort of sweetness builds up in the middle of your palate there, and as you move, there's a wee bit of a kind of slightly more concentrated brown sugar thing in the very centre of your palate. That's the alcohol component, of course, but as you move further out from the middle of your palate there, you'll get a more kind of biscuity McVitie's digestive sort of thing. You can feel that just developing too, which is which is quite nice. So yeah, I like how this one goes together in that sense as well. But yeah, there's a lovely this is one of these beers where it just everything fits together really well. It's a really easy drinking beer, this, and the malt base is done very, very nicely. For me, with these lager beers, it's critical to get the malt base right, and this one, while it is different and it maybe isn't quite the most original one I think I've tasted compared to the, you know, the Munich Helles and things like that, it is very, very good. But that's, in fairness, what they have called it, a lager beer. They've not said that it's a Munich Helles, they've not said it's a Pilsner, they've just called it a lager beer. And in fairness, you know, that gives you a whole scope of things. You can, a Doppelbock is a lager beer, a Schwarzbier is a lager beer, the Dunkel, you know, you've got a whole host of things. If you simply put lager beer on it, you can kind of do what you want within reason, as long as it's a cold fermentation, come to think of it. So yeah, I like how they've pulled this one off. But on the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of earthiness in there, which is nice. That's again typical of these German hops. But as you move further forward, it develops a little bit of a herbal quality. Then as you reach, you know, the further forward parts of your tongue, it's got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity to it, which works very, very well. There is just a little bit of that in there, but as you go round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and I think that that works very well for it as well. But yeah, the green component of the beer is typically German noble hop. Actually, it's got that lovely kind of bright floral aromaticity, but again, this is just about how everything fits together, to be honest with you. So yeah, on the fruity side of things then, as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So for me, if you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, it's got a little bit, it does have a wee bit of a kind of thicker kind of bready note there. You do get a wee tiny almost bread crusty quality there, but as you move further forward from that, you do get a wee bit of a citrusy lemony kind of quality there. Then as you move into that middle third of your palate, you might get a soft kind of apricot-y, peary kind of thing, and then as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, it gets you know, a little bit more kind of oily and stuff. You start to get a wee bit of the kind of melony flavours out of it, and you can get those lovely big oily gooseberry qualities from the Hallertau Blanc as well. Hallertau Blanc is actually not a million miles away from the likes of Nelson Sauvin in its composition, although it's a bit more oily and gooseberry-like rather than white and green grapey as Nelson Sauvin is. So there's a really interesting flavour kind of blend on this one. I really like how that goes together. But yeah, on the front edge of the tongue, there's a little bit of that kind of lemony, grassy sort of thing, just a wee bit of a citrusy zest. So yeah, I really like how that one goes together. So yeah, this one I think works really, really well. It's quite quirky in some ways and different from the originals, as I've said, but they've called it a lager beer, so they can kind of get away with that. But yeah, lovely lager beer, this one, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. So hopefully when I do make it to Wylam to do an out and about video, they've got this on tap. That would be pretty awesome. I'll have a go at this on tap for sure. So yeah, awesome stuff. Big thumbs up from me. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say that this beer, it's kind of bottom end to mid-bodied, top end of light-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a lovely big kind of oily character to it, which I think works very, very well. I think that this is definitely one of the more oily lager beers I've had in recent times, but it works. It really does work. The malty side of this beer, it's quite soft and quite smooth. There's a little bit of sweetness develops out of it later. In terms of hoppy bitterness, you know, I'd be surprised if this beer is even 20 IBUs. There's not a lot of bitterness to this one at all, to be honest with you. But then again, I think it's the sort of smoothness of these German noble, the sort of German noble element of the green component in these hops there. But remember, they are some of the higher alpha acid ones from Germany. I think Hallertau Blanc usually gives you 11 alpha acid, and I think Huell Melon might be like 8 or something. It's similar to Mandarina Bavaria, if I remember rightly, which I know is 8. But yeah, the regular Hallertaus and Tettnangers are usually like 4-5% alpha acid. You've got Pearl and Hercules and other things as well that are slightly stronger than that. But yeah, the fruitiness in this beer for me, a little bit of wetness to it, but mainly slightly oily, to be honest with you. But it's a lovely, lovely beer, this one. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm glad that I was able to get this review in on the channel as well. I saw this beer on social media. I think it might have been some of the English guys that were sharing this. But I saw this beer on social media quite a little while ago, so I'm glad that I was able to get this one and review that on the channel for you while I was home here in Scotland. So yeah, big thumbs up to both Wylam Brewery and Donzoko for this one. So yeah, let's leave it there. The cold condition lager beer, 4.6% ABV from Wylam Brewery in Newcastle, originally brewed as well with Donzoko Brewing Company in Hartlepool in County Durham, both from the northeast of England. So yeah, awesome stuff this, and I've enjoyed it, so I hope you did as well. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Wylam Brewery and from Donzoko Brewing Company. We will return to both of these breweries at some point in the fairly near future, I'm sure, but thank you for your support, and I will catch you guys in the next review. Awesome stuff this, and yeah, more lager beers to come, I'm sure. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out this one, the cold condition from Wylam in Newcastle, and Donzoko from Hartlepool. Cheers.